Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SDX Energy PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. They can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions at any time and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during today's meeting. However, the company can review all questions submitted today, and we'll publish those responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll, and I'm sure the company will be most grateful for your participation. I'd now like to hand over to Daniel Gould, CEO. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much. Everybody, welcome to this corporate update webinar. On the SDX side, you have, apart from me, the CEO, William McHavock, the CFO, and Aaron LeBlanc, Head of Operations. And the way that we wanted to do this webinar is in three parts. I'll give a broad corporate overview, what's achieved so far, and the next steps, the roadmap that we have ahead of us for SDX. And number two, I'll then hand it over to Aaron for a update on the subsurface operations, and we're very excited about some of the prospects that we believe we've identified for action in the near future. And then third, importantly, a Q&A session where you will have an opportunity to ask us questions and really emphasize the fact that we are committed to transparency. We want to answer your questions either during this webinar or at any point in time. If you want to reach out to us, we are always available. So without further ado, let me jump into my portion, a corporate update. As you may know, over the last 12 to 14 months, the company's management, senior team, as well as a number of other teams beneath have been refreshed, updated. And this new team has focused hard and worked hard to build the foundations for getting the company back on track and buzzing. So even though a lot of the work has been behind the scenes, I'm very proud of what we've achieved, and I think we have created a great base for moving forward and generating value. So the progress to date really across three categories: Egypt, Morocco, and broader corporate. Egypt, we've recently sold West Garib, one of our two key assets, for over $7 million, paid outside the country, importantly. And we are progressing well on negotiating the sale of the final assets at the Souk, which will be sold this year. But in the meantime, we continue operational activity in Egypt to make sure that the asset remains in good shape. In Morocco, we have restarted drilling, firming up our reserves. We drilled 2 wells in the last 7 months, and we plan to drill more during this year, not only to satisfy our concession obligations, but really to ensure that we can continue to supply gas to our very hungry industrial gas off-takers. Importantly, in Morocco, we've also deepened significantly relationships with a number of our stakeholders, but probably most importantly, our largest gas off-taker, Sittek Dicastal. For those who don't know, Sittek Dicastal is one of the companies that's part of the Sittek Holding Group, a $1 trillion Chinese conglomerate with a growing operation base in Morocco. So that's progress in Morocco. And on the corporate side, importantly, we've refreshed various teams, finance, and crucially, the subsoil team. We've brought in fresh, not only head of operations, but geology, reservoir engineers, etc. And what that allows us is to have a fundamentally modern, advanced approach to both exploration and drilling, which I'm confident is going to pay dividends. And Aaron's presentation will testify to that as we look at significant new prospects on our existing concessions. Apart from upgrading our teams, strict cost controls We've reduced payroll, OPEX, and G&A across all three centers: Egypt, Morocco, and London. And we have much tighter operational and financial controls now going forward, which is critical for a company like SDX. And finally, we've continued to work on strengthening our balance sheet. We've continuously negotiated with creditors, either achieving significant discounts on some payables, paying off EBRD, our only secured creditor, and putting in place term payment plans with other creditors, all enabling us to operate effectively going forward. So a lot of progress to date, as I'm sure some of you will note. A lot of that progress is not visible to the public markets, but nonetheless, what we've been doing, the entire senior team and beyond, have focused on really creating a very strong foundation for now taking much more visible and obvious steps in generating value in the coming quarters. So, what are these next steps? And again, we have some clear strategic level focuses that I and my senior team are pursuing. First and foremost, we are still committed strategically to sell our remaining Egyptian asset, South Dusuk, and fully exit Egypt, with a view to focus on Morocco and opportunistically on other jurisdictions, but really right now focus on Morocco. Apart from Egypt, we have to do more of what we've been doing for the last 13 plus years in Morocco, which is drill more in order to produce more and explore more. Now, drilling more, I have to remind you, SDX is in a unique position in Morocco. We're the only independent gas producer, and we not only produce, but we transport that gas directly to our large industrial off-takers that pay a hefty premium for that gas. So it's not only is it a unique position, but it's a highly profitable one. If we're able to deliver more gas, we significantly improve our top line and our bottom line. And of course, apart from producing more, we need to explore more. And Aaron, in his presentation shortly, will talk about very exciting 50 BCF prospect that we believe we've uncovered using the earlier mentioned exploration techniques. And I'll leave it to Aaron to give details on that. But this will be if our estimates are correct and we're able to attack it, this is going to be a game-changing step for SDX and actually for Morocco. Apart from doing more of what we have been doing and doing it better at larger scale, we and I personally am very focused on what I call here organic expansion into adjacencies for SDX. And those adjacencies most obviously are gas transportation, gas to power, and renewable energy. These adjacencies offer, actually even in the short term, so in the 12-month and beyond, opportunity to diversify the business model away from pure upstream into something that capitalizes on the unique asset set that SDX has in Morocco. And finally, obviously, we continue to be opportunistic in exploring inorganic opportunities that may be value accretive and generate value for SDX shareholders in Morocco, but particularly outside it. So, moving on, I wanted to just expand on the organic expansion or organic move into the adjacencies for SDX. Now, this is a high level, let's say, infographic to help you think about what these adjacencies are and why they present natural opportunities for SDX's growth plan and value generation plan. On the left-hand side, you have our traditional DNA activity, producing gas. And with this currently management estimated 50 BCF prospect, we have an opportunity to significantly scale SDX's upstream business in Morocco. But apart from an upstream asset, SDX today has over 200 kilometers of flow lines of gas transportation infrastructure that goes from our fields to Kenitra in Morocco, which is one of the largest industrial areas and one of the fastest growing areas, naturally needing vast amounts of gas, first for industrial purposes, but over time for power purposes. And we're currently using our asset at about 10% capacity, right? We're flowing a few MCF a day. Now we can leverage our existing assets at 8 to 10 times the current utilization. And obviously we can flow our own gas, or we can begin to import gas and flow imported gas into an area of premium paying demand for gas. So that midstream focus, which is a natural leveraging of our existing midstream assets, is broken up into two specific projects. One is what we call a virtual gas pipeline. And the virtual gas pipeline is essentially using CNG trucking infrastructure to truck CNG between the international pipeline, the GME, which imports gas from Spain, to our existing pipeline infrastructure. Now, because that trucking distance is so short, 50 kilometers, it presents a very cost-effective way to, as I said, increase gas through gas delivery to Kenitra by 8 times and be done within a 12-month period in terms of putting that infrastructure in place. Naturally, we will need to obtain all the regulatory approvals, which is what we are focused on at the moment. The longer term plan is to substitute the virtual gas pipeline with the gas pipeline, physical gas pipeline extension. And you see that in the middle of the picture. That will further lower the cost of transportation and potentially also increase throughput. So that vertical midstream adjacency for SDX is going to allow SDX to play a increasingly strategic role of transporting significantly more gas, either our own, which we import, or third-party gas, to earn a stable transit fee on an ongoing basis. Apart from midstream, and I've spoken about leveraging our existing assets, SDX not only has upstream assets, the concessions and midstream assets, it also has 13 years worth of gas off-takers. Those unique relationships with major companies, international companies and Moroccan companies, is an asset in and of itself. And therefore cross-selling of other energy products, particularly green energy, renewable energy, it would be a natural step for SDX. And we are exploring PPAs and general commercial terms with some of our core customers in Morocco, firming up the demand in order then to be able to solve for the supply side, constructing utility scale renewable projects to deliver, again, subject to regulatory approvals and transmission capacity, deliver that energy to our existing clients and grow that client base in Kenitra and beyond when we're offering industrial gas and green energy. And then finally, the ambition is to, if we're able to flow sufficient gas, to then use that gas not only for industrial demand, but also for generation of power. And here, I just want to take a second to give the macro context to why gas power is so important. As you may know, Morocco, on the edge of Europe, has been exhibiting amazing economic growth coupled with industrial growth over the last decade. The country has excelled in attracting more and more industrial players, generating economic growth, which comes with growing energy demand and electricity demand. Together with a commitment to greener energy, Morocco needs gas, and Morocco needs a lot of gas, and SDX is truly incredibly well placed to play a part in that broader macro picture of Morocco because of our long-term track record in the country of doing exactly that, delivering gas to industrial demand. And so leveraging our existing assets, be it the upstream assets, the midstream assets, the pipeline, or the relationships that we have that I firmly believe are a key asset, is the key to growing the company to much greater revenues, much greater size, and ultimately market capitalization in Morocco. Now, this next slide is really intended to give some more color and some more detail on each of these modular projects to really bring across the fact that we have been working hard to due diligence, firm up, and importantly put in place the strategic partnership frameworks for each of these projects, because clearly SDX has a choice of so-called doing it alone, or we can partner with large international players in order to deliver solutions more effectively and in shorter periods. And as things concretize, I'd be delighted to come back to all of you and announce details of the specific projects and specific partners that we're working together with. But I believe I mentioned most of the details in my previous slides, so I will not go through the individual stages, but I will leave time for you all to ask me questions in the Q&A. So this is the overall update. A lot of work has been done by the new team. The team is hungry, energetic, and knows what it needs to get done in the coming quarters and beyond. We've built the foundation, and now we are continuing to work on really delivering visible results again in the coming quarters. So I want to thank you for this portion and hand it over to Aaron LeBlanc, my head of operations, who's going to talk to you about the upstream exciting things that are happening.
Thank you, Daniel. So today I'm here to present an update on the current operations, the current, give an overview of the current play type that SDX has been chasing traditionally, and to present an exciting new opportunity, the 50 BCF prospect that Daniel referred to, and how we plan to hopefully develop that in the near term. Disclaimer. So who are we? I'll highlight on some of the main points that Daniel has already commented on. SDX is Morocco's sole independent natural gas producer. We are the only ones capable of supplying gas into Morocco's industrial base situated in the Atlantic Free Zone. We have sales agreements in place, most importantly with our strategic partner SDX, and we have been and continue to chase proven low-risk drilling opportunities using our extensive 3D seismic database. If we look at a map of SDX's assets located just north of Rabat, the blue that you see on that map is the ocean, so it's right along the coastal area, and that green block is composed of 3 permits, which are approximately 1,500 square kilometers, or 1,560 to be more precise. And what's also shown is a red pipeline which is our main trunk line, which supplies gas to the Atlantic Free Zone and Kenitra, where we have our industrial or our off-takers. In addition to that pipeline, there's another 200 kilometers of flow lines which flow into that main pipeline and carry the gas to our industrial users. Current production is approximately 2.5 million cubic feet per day, but the line has been rated with the capacity to flow 20 to 25 million a day into those end users. To date, most of the exploration and seismic activity, along with the development activity, has been focused on the eastern side of that block. So on this slide, what we are showing is what SDX has traditionally chased, and I call it shooting fish in a barrel, essentially. So on the top right-hand side of the slide, you see a map, which is an amplitude map, and the dark colors, the blue colors, are interpreted to be shales and clays, while the red colors, the hot colors, are interpreted to be and have been proven to be gas-filled reservoirs. So typically SDX would look at a map view, they'd identify these areas, they'd take a cross-section through that map, which is the lower right-hand side image there, and the yellow and blue represents gas. You drill that, and 80% of the time you have a very nice reservoir. And if you look at similar to what's shown on the logs from KSR 21, which was drilled in September, the yellow represents sand, the gray represents or indicates shale, and it's very high-grade reservoir, 24% porosity, 20% SW, and high recovery factors. Typically, in the Robb Basin, average well recovery has been 1.1 BCF. As we've developed the field, those recoveries have reduced, and we're currently producing or looking for prospects in the range of 0.5 BCF. So we continue to develop these prospects. We have another 3 in the hopper, which we are progressing towards drill ready and hope to drill sometime in the second half of 2024. Now, as Daniel mentioned, we've beefed up renewed the subsurface team, and one of their first tasks was to look at all of the 3D seismic and start tying that together and looking at the broader picture and seeing where we can grow. And what's shown on the regional map, which is on the left-hand side, is the extent of our 3D seismic. And what we've done is we've pulled out the amplitude over a wide interval, so over a larger stratigraphic section, and we've stacked all those reservoirs on top of each other. Blue again represents what we believe to be shale, and yellow and orange represents what we've shown to be gas-filled reservoir. If we zoom in on the area that's outlined in the green box, we see a cluster of amplitudes that are stacked. Over 600 anomalies have been mapped within that area. The area is approximately 10 square kilometers. And when we run the volumes on this pool, even though it's a series of clusters, we believe that we can develop it as one pool. We've identified between 17 and 84 BCF of resource. The mean recoverable estimate is 47 BCF. Now, what's interesting is, and worth noting, is that should we progress this, or as we intend to, 5 million cubic feet per day producing out of a 47 BCF pool represents 26 years of production. So it's a significant resource, and it'll be a major step change for SDX going forward. Now, one of the challenges of developing a play like this is how each individual amplitude is too small to drill on its own. So it's going to require a new technology. And what we're planning to do, and we're investigating right now, is bringing multilateral technology from North America to Morocco. We already have a Canadian drilling rig that has done these types of wells in Alberta. We have a Canadian crew. You have myself. I've drilled multilaterals and horizontals in Alberta before. So we take that technology, we bring it to Morocco, and we really hope to spearhead development of this new play. If you look at the maps on the top right-hand corner, that's a plan view. So those are existing wells right now in Alberta, and you can see that you have a primary wellbore which descends down, and then you have a feather-like pattern which you use out of the same existing wellbore to access multiple targets. And really what this does, additionally, in addition to accessing a larger resource base, it reduces costs on and surface disturbance. So our next steps, we plan to drill a stratigraphic well, which is essentially it's not a science project, but it's a well that we use to calibrate the seismic and the reservoir. We identify gas potential, we identify rock type, and it helps us plan for these multilaterals. We hope to drill that well within the next 4 months. And once that's done, we can progress the multilateral drilling, which, if everything works and is successful, we hope to instigate or commence in 2025, the beginning of 2025. We have another 3 wells, as I mentioned before. We're planning to progress those, drill them sometime in the second half of 2024. Daniel mentioned the virtual pipeline. We're waiting to progress that. And as always, we continue to engage with the Moroccan government, our close partner in developing these assets. Thank you for your time, and that concludes this part of the presentation.
That's great. Aaron, Daniel, thank you very much indeed for updating investors. If I could just ask maybe Daniel and William also, if I may just ask you to bring up your cameras, that will be great. Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Which is why the guys take a few moments to review your questions submitted already. I'd just like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, will be available via your Investor Meet company dashboard. Daniel, we received a number of questions from investors throughout your presentation. We received a couple before as well. So thank you firstly to everybody for your engagement. Daniel, if I may start off with the first question, which we received ahead of today's event, which was, can we hold these meetings at a time that's more convenient for North American investors, i.e. 3 p.m. BST onwards?
Yes, absolutely. This is well noted. Unfortunately, we couldn't change the time, but for our next presentation, and I want to emphasize that we plan to hold these regularly going forward. Next time will be scheduled with a view for North American investor participation.
That's great, thank you. Have there been any approaches from regional competitors such as Chariot or Sound to access SDX's Kinetra pipeline?
The short answer is no. A slightly longer answer is that the pipeline, particularly the pipeline in question, because out of this 240 kilometers of flow lines, there's a trunk, an 8-inch high pressure rated trunk pipeline that is really the key for any serious gas transportation. That is owned 75% SDX, 25% ONIM, which is the Moroccan government entity. And so technically, any other upstream players in Morocco will approach ONIM as a starting point, and then they will come to us. But we haven't had any approaches so far.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Question here around funding. What future funding requirements do you need over the short term? Obviously, you've got asset sales funds coming in, but will additional capital be needed for non-organic opportunities?
William will answer that.
Take that. I'm CFO of SDX, and in the short term, we don't have any funding requirements because, as Daniel mentioned earlier, we've just sold our West Garib assets for around $7 million. We've already received $3.5 million of that, and we expect to receive the remaining $3.5 million over the coming weeks and months. We've been collecting revenue in Egypt. We continue to collect gas revenue in Morocco, and we've just drawn down another $750,000 from the convertible loan. So we're okay for the short term. And in terms of non-organic opportunities, well, that very much depends on the deal that we're looking at. For those who don't know, non-organic means an acquisition of another business, and it could be a share-for-share exchange, not involving cash, therefore not needing funding, or it may have a cash component and may well need funding.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, William. Turning to the next question, could you outline the specific milestones expected to be reached in the next 6 months and how they really demonstrate the progress you're making in shifting to the energy transition sector?
Yeah. So I think both I and Aaron can jump in. Look, so specific milestones and then specific milestones with respect to the energy transition sector shift. We have a lot to do on the upstream. We will continue to drill. We will step up our exploration activity, not only with respect to this 50 BCF, but also acquiring additional 3D seismic, not only because it is our concession obligation, but also because that is how we're going to firm up resources and grow our portfolio, which is crucial and is a short-term value generation. So milestones with respect to our key goals. We can talk about the milestones on the upstream, drilling additional wells, strat well, data reprocessing, etc. And some of those will not be public milestones that we're going to be talking about, but rest assured there's a lot going on, and we'll do our best to keep you all informed on the milestones that we can talk about. On the milestones with respect to progress towards the energy transition sector, we've already done a lot of technical and economic due diligence on the projects that I mentioned, particularly on the midstream side. A lot now depends on the Moroccan government's approval for what we are looking to do, and I'm in Morocco every few weeks, every month, often meeting with different representatives of the government, different stakeholders, because the energy transition as a concept is of strategic importance to the country, and therefore there are a number of different stakeholders even at the public sector level, and alignment and support from them takes time. But so in the next 6 months, I very much hope that we will have explicit support in one form or another, and I won't commit as to what that form will look like because it's outside my control. But really, having the sovereign, the Moroccan government, enable us to do the things we need to do on the midstream and potentially the renewable energy.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Next question, could you elaborate on the plans to extend SDX's gas transportation infrastructure to import gas via the Maghreb-Europe gas pipeline? What challenges or regulatory hurdles do you think might present themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, and you could have an entire webinar just on that, because look, gas transportation infrastructure is complicated from an infrastructure perspective, but also a regulatory perspective. And the fact is, at the moment, Morocco doesn't have a downstream gas code. They have a hydrocarbon code that governs our upstream activity, but there isn't precedent for private sector midstream and downstream participation, because generally, historically, Morocco has not been a big player in the gas sector, and we hope we can be part of changing that together with other companies in the country. But so the goal is very simple. SDX has existing midstream infrastructure. We want to connect our existing infrastructure to the Maghreb pipeline. Now, practically, that involves building an 8-inch or larger pipe that connects our one end of our pipeline to the GME. In legal and regulatory terms, that means getting a number of approvals for gas importation, or working with someone that has the gas import license, and then flowing that third-party gas, if it is third-party gas, through our pipeline. Now, I think all of this is surmountable. I think the key thing to bear in mind is what SDX wants to do is very much in support of the Moroccan government and the Moroccan nation's needs and desires. The country wants to move away from the dirty fossil fuels, coal, heavy fuel oil, towards cleaner energy. And cleaner energy doesn't just mean renewable, it means gas. So there is a lot of focus, strategic level focus on getting more gas into the country and getting our gas across the country. Because at the moment, the only infrastructure that really exists and operates is the GME, and some very, very short transportation next to the GME, plus us. And the government is keen to grow their transportation infrastructure to bring gas to where it's needed, either for power generation or for industrial use. And SDX is keen to, in the short term again, and the medium term beyond, to help the country of Morocco do exactly that, leveraging its existing infrastructure. So we have to find ways together with the Moroccan government of being able to do that legally, regulatorily, let's say. I hope that answers the question. If not, please feel free to follow up. Happy to discuss more. It's definitely a topic of my focus, because I think it's absolutely critical for SDX's say expansion beyond the upstream, and taking part in what will be a rapidly growing sector that has a lot of value generation potential.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Moving on, if I may, if we used industry standard metrics to South Disco, what would it be worth? What are the hurdles to make this happen, a disposal happen here?
Look, industry standard metrics, I'm not sure that we can comment on this call on values. It is not of insignificant value, and we, as I've said before, we're committed to ensuring that the value that we realize is fair. In terms of what are the hurdles to make this disposal happen, we were focused on the West Gharib and on the West Gharib sale, Now the focus is on the South to Zug sale. So the hurdle is purely how quickly we can agree the binding documentation with the buyer, and it's made simpler by the fact that it's a single buyer, not two, as with West Garib. So how long's a piece of string? But this receives my personal focus. I am working with the M&A team to ensure that decisions, commercial decisions, or rather legal decisions, are made, so we don't get stuck. Quite often, what happens in these large M&A transactions, too many cooks in the kitchen. We have a strategic level decision to sell South to Zug and exit Egypt, and that's exactly what we and I personally are going to be doing.
That's great, thank you. I guess the kind of next question may be tying into that in terms of a time frame, but I think the question reads: are there any timeline projections for partial or full exit from Egypt? But
look, I've been burned on giving predictions on West Garib, and I fall on my sword. I underestimated some of the some of the headwinds that we experienced for that particular trade, for that particular transaction. We will sell this year, and I hope sooner rather than later. I think I will have much better understanding in the next let's say 2 weeks or less. So that's for the sale of South to Zug. Not to be too technical, but exiting Egypt, because don't forget West Garib was sold as an asset sale, so our corporate structure in Egypt remains. We need to tie up those loose ends, and those loose ends they don't cost money. They're not, but it just takes time in terms of administrative processes to close companies, liaising with all the different authorities in Egypt, etc., etc., etc. So I suspect it's going to be a good 6 to 8 months after we've sold South to Zug, that we can fully exit and say that we no longer have any legal presence, any corporate presence in Egypt.
That's great, thank you. Next question: is it realistic to see SDX being cash generative after capex in 24-25?
I'm just trying to understand.
Well, we can do.
Look, I think I'll try and give a longer answer in the written answer, but the whole point of capex, any investment decision, the whole point of capex is it generates value, and value is for us cash generation. I pointed out earlier, in Morocco, SDX is in a unique position of firming up resources and then firming up reserves, and being able to realize those reserves through the sale of gas, immediate sale of gas to large industrial credit-worthy clients that even prepay for that gas. So absolutely, our capex in Morocco should be generating immediate cash. Well, immediate is a strong word, but once the gas flows, we are generating cash every month, and our other projects midstream will be cash generative. The whole point of diversification into midstream and others is a more stable, lower risk cash flow business model to supplement the value generated by the upstream model.
Well, that's great. Daniel, Aaron, William, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon, for your presentation, and for taking all those questions. If any further questions do come in, we can make those available to you post today's presentation, and we can add additional responses where it's appropriate to do so. Daniel, I know that feedback will be particularly important to yourself and to the rest of the team on the call, and I'll shortly redirect those on the call to give you their thoughts and expectations. But perhaps before doing so, if I may, Daniel, just come back to you for a couple of closing comments, and then I'll ask investors for their feedback.
Yeah, thank you. Just to reemphasize, SDX has revamped its team, and that fresh, hungry team is making hay. We've continued to do a lot of work in the background, and increasingly that foundation is enabling us to take real steps in the upstream space, but also in the adjacencies that I've talked about. That's point number one. Point number two, Morocco is a country of great opportunity for SDX because of SDX's assets and track record. And point number three, please feel free to reach out to the senior management team if you have questions or comments. We are open. We do get incomings, and to the extent that we're able to, given MNPI, we are always happy to answer your questions. Come and see us in our London office. We're always here. So I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time, and look forward to engaging with some of you, all of you, in the nearest future.
That's great. Daniel, Aaron, William, thank you once again for your time this afternoon. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. This may take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of XD Energy PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation and wish you all a very good afternoon.